Well, now you've seen all of the hand rankings, and if you don't remember them, you can always go to truepokerdealer.com. We do have a nice, clear chart that goes over what we just talked about. We're going to move on to the versions of poker now, though. Now, basically, there's a lot of different types of poker that you can play, and we're starting out with the most basic of types, the one that's the most popular. It's called Texas Hold'em. And here's how it works. I'm not going to worry about the betting rounds right now, and don't worry about shuffling it professionally. You can shuffle the cards however you want if you're just learning at home. But this is basically going to be, I'm going to deal everybody 2 cards, and each person gets their own cards, and they're only for that person that they go to. And you can just pretend that there are 6 people here and they're all playing. Now, when you get your cards, most of the time in Texas Hold'em, you keep them to yourself. I'm going to flip them up just so that we can see what beats what based on what we just learned by hand rankings. So you can see some of these hands over here. I've got a king 8, a queen 7, jack 10, 6 tray, 9 8, ace 5. Now when you deal it out, again, this is without the betting rounds. This is just for you at home to mess around with yourself or your friends and figure out what it is that beats what. You do want to burn a card just to get used to this tradition of it. Now, if you had a pot, you would burn it under a pot, but we don't right now. And then you're going to bring yourself a flop. Now, I'll do it the professional way, but if you wanted to, you could bring the flop just like this when you're learning, right? And then the next card would get burned, and then the next card would come up, and these are community cards that everybody uses. And then the next card would get burned, and then it would look just like this. So, basically, everybody uses these, and each person uses theirs in combination with them to make the best possible 5-card poker hand. And it has to be exactly 5 cards. In poker, even though this person has 2 plus 5, we only allow 5-card poker hands. We also don't allow 4-card poker hands. So let's go around and see what everybody has. This player right here has a pair of aces, another pair of 5s with a king kicker. So they have 2 pair with a king. Now that might be kind of tough to beat. This player over here, well, they've just got a high card hand. They have an ace, king, queen, 9, 8. So I'm going to flip this over because that does not beat 2 pair as we went over before. This player over here has an ace, king, queen, 6, 5. Notice that the 3 is not a part of their best 5-card poker hand. So again, I'm going to flip their cards over just so that we can remember that they do not win. Now this player over here, they've got an ace, king, queen, jack 10 for a straight. Now, as it turns out, because of what's on the board, that's the best possible hand that somebody could have. And this player happens to have that hand. So we've got a straight over here, and we know nobody's going to beat it. I'm just going to go over what everyone else has just to be sure, and I'm going to flip this 2 pair over just so that we remember that the straight's winning. This player right here has a pair of queens with an ace, king, 7. So their 7 is a part of that 5-card poker hand. But they don't win because of the straight. And the same thing over here, a pair of kings with an ace, queen, 8. So as you can see, I dealt out this one hand of Texas Hold'em, and this player right here ended up having the best hand, and they would have won the money, or if you're just playing for fun with no betting rounds, they would have won what was in there. Now we're going to move on to Omaha Hold'em. Now in Omaha Hold'em, I'm just going to start it and deal it all over again. Omaha Hold'em is very similar to Texas Hold'em, except that everyone gets 4 cards. But I'll show you what I mean right now. So I shuffle the cards, and I'm going to cut them, just, stay consistent with what you do in poker. And I'm just going to deal in 4 people to save a little bit of time. So 4 people, 4 cards each. You can deal up to 10 places, by the way. In most conventional poker games, 10 people for Hold'em versions are the maximum. Occasionally you'll see an 11, but it's very unusual. And I'm showing you what these hands are now. Here we go. So I'm not going to state what these hands are. We'll see how it works. Now in Omaha, it's the same thing. You burn a card, and then you bring a flop, and then you burn a card, and then you bring a turn, and you burn a card, and you bring a river. Now in Omaha, you must use exactly 2 from your hand and exactly 3 from the board. You cannot use all 5 from the board just like you could in Texas Hold'em. It's got to be 2 from your hand and 3 from the board, which can get kind of confusing at times. So let's take a look at what everybody has. In this case, we're going to call this just high, by the way. There's Omaha high-low. That's a little bit more complicated. We get into that later. This player right here has, it looks like 9s and 5s with a king. Notice 2 cards here, 3 cards here. So I'm going to leave that up like that for a moment. Now we go over to this player. This player over here appears to have, sometimes you got to look at it a couple of times. It looks like they've got 9s and 8s with a king. Now that's better than 9s and 5s. So I'm going to turn this over just so that we can see what it looks like. Now we'll go over to this player right over here. Now this player seems to not have anything that special. I'm looking at their hand and all that I'm seeing is just a king, queen, jack, 9, 8 for their hand. Well, that's not that good. It's a high card hand in Omaha. I'm going to flip that over as well. And this player over here appears to have, it looks like 8s and 4s would be their hand with a king. Notice it's with a king kicker, not an ace kicker, because I've already used 2 cards from their hand, so I can't use any more. So because of that, in this example of Omaha, this player right here will have won with 8s and 9s like I showed. Now it's time for 7-card stud. Now this is another popular version of poker. There's so many different types of poker, but there's really just these 3 that are the most popular. Really just Texas Hold'em, Omaha Hold'em, and 7-card stud. And then you might see low ball, and you might see Raz, and you might see Badoogie, and some other stuff like that. But these 3 are the most common. This is just for figuring out really the feel for how poker works. So in 7-card stud, it's different than Hold'em, because in 7-card stud there are no community cards. Everybody only gets to play the cards that are dealt to them. And here's what it looks like. Obviously, minus the betting rounds. Everybody's going to get 2 cards face down to start, and then they get a card face up. Now at this point, there would be the betting round. Like I said, I'm skipping that. Then you would burn a card, give everyone else another face up card. Burn a card, another face up card. This is just what it looks like. Another face up card. 7-card stud, meaning that there are 7 cards to everybody. One more burn. I'm going to get them out of the way just for my own sake. And then everybody gets a face down card. And that's all that there is to 7-card stud. So now let's see who wins. Well, this player right here would have 3 queens with a jack 5. That's a pretty good 7-card stud hand. Let's see what this player right here has. They just have a high card hand with a king, queen, 10, 9, 7. So I'm going to show that they don't win by flipping this over. Again, notice nobody is sharing anything. They all have their own cards that they're playing with. This player over here, ace, king, 9, 8, 7. Not better than 3 queens. And this one over here had a pair of 6s that are showing. Looks like jacks and 6s. And a 9, and yeah, they had an extra pair of 4s, but it's 5-card poker hands. So these are insignificant as far as this person's hand is concerned. Each version of poker has betting rounds. That's the part that puts money into the game of poker. And if you're learning at home, feel free just to deal out hands and figure out who wins without the betting rounds. That's fine. But if you want to play for money, you're going to have to learn how each version of poker utilizes betting rounds, and it's all going to be slightly different. The other 2 concepts that are really important to poker are cards speak and 1 player per hand. Now, cards speak basically means that the only thing that entitles a player to win is their cards. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the best cards. Everyone else could have folded in a given betting round. But without those cards, you can't win. And the other concept that I just said is 1 player per hand. Very, very important. Nobody can help you with your hand and figure out how to win. In other words, the dealer at the table can't say, hey, you should do this. You can't show your friend what to do. You have to play your hand 100% on your own. And those concepts really control what poker is. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I know I have. My name is Mark Shumsker, and this is truepokerdealer.com.